Okay, live. Okay. So, hey, I just wanted to have this in my mind. Like, what up, man? So, welcome to Boss's channel. So, yeah, we're gonna be covering the Ashtakavarga part B now. The third part B. There could be part 4. Not sure. I think 3 parts should do it, but you never know how things are. So, I made a mistake in the last video. I don't know if anybody caught it. Did anybody catch the mistake I made in the last video? Because I was questioning myself. I'm like, okay, I just showed this to people. However, it does not sit well because this person should not be having any problems, or not as much as I think. So did anybody catch that problem? What was it? What problem did you see? No, that's not it. That's not it. I actually I put the wrong time of birth for Mahatma Gandhi's horoscope. And when I was showing it to you guys, I'm like, huh. When I was studying it, this, it wasn't really this okay. And I'm like, but no, this still has low Ashtakavarga points, but still something's not matching. My mind didn't register. I put in the wrong time of birth. I literally put in exactly 12 hours in advance, then backward. So we're gonna be talking about. I'm gonna show you that chart again of Mahatma Gandhi, and the one thing you have to understand with the third part of divisional charts, okay? And this is something that I will look at some of your charts. If you're okay with me looking at your charts, I can look at some of your charts and say something. I don't know if you really want me to in public. I'm just warning you. If you so want me to read your Ashtakavarga, be careful because it'll be here for life. Um, so when you're studying the Ashtakavarga of the divisional charts, one of the easiest thing to see is that what is it that I am looking for? When I'm trying to just judge the score, what part of my life am I trying to, understand? Is it my marriage? Is it my wealth? Is it my children? Is it my office space, my karmic office space, which is the D10 chart? See, D10 chart, the Samsa chart, is really not the chart of career. I think we have all learned it pretty in a wrong way about the Dasamsha. You know what Dasamsha is? Dasamsha shows how is that this karma is spread out. What is the karma, the actions that you're going to take, and what type of an environment that action is going to be in? Meaning, like, your office, like, okay, so in my house, this is my office, and I have my downstairs studio. That is actually my Dasamsha within my fourth house. So if I want to know what is it that my professional space is like, what karmas am I performing in my professional space, and what type of people will I be interacting with, that's the Dasamsha. But if Dasamsha doesn't say, okay, this is your career, you're going to lose. Career is really seen through some of the Jaimini Karakas, Karakamsha Lagna, and the Hora. And especially the easiest way to see somebody's career, first look at what education they have gotten. Do they have a higher education like PhD, doctorate degree, MBA, even a bachelor's degree? Or are they somebody who may not have had any kind of a basic education? That means they must be doing something different or must be doing some business of their own. So all these things matter. So when you're looking at, let's say, your wealth, overall life, when it comes to divisional chart Ashtakavarga, Always look at Navamsha. Look at Navamsha for like literally general perspective of everything. Whether it's your siblings, your children, your marriage, and Navamsha is like, this is why it's the most important chart. And especially if you look at like Navamsha nakshatras, I think they're actually more even accurate than even probably the birth nakshatra. But if I want to know about marriage, okay, you look at your Navamsha. Navamsha is marriage. Navamsha is the destiny that is assigned to you with another person. And then both of you will go towards a certain destiny. Or maybe your destiny is to just be alone and figure out your own way, your own path without somebody's help, without somebody's, involvement, with your luck, with your planets. So we will look at Navamsha for marriage, but what is it that you're specifically looking for? That one thing that you just look and you're like, okay, this is how I see this thing happening. And this can also be applied to the birth chart. Well, if I'm looking for marriage, which house represents marriage? Bondage. It is the seventh house. Okay? Seventh house and the fourth house represents marriage, because seventh house becomes your union with that person. Okay, I'm in a union with this person. And then how's the karma of that marriage is going to play out? You mean your daily routines? What actions are you taking in front of each other? Are you loving? Are you bickering? Are you arguing? Well, look, 10th from the 7th house. 10th from the 7th house is the karma of the marriage, which is what? The 4th house of dwelling. You do not go, you do not stay with your spouse in your office. You stay with your spouse in home. Unless you're working together, most of the time, 80-90% of the time, a husband goes somewhere else, spouse goes somewhere else, and then they come together in the evening. So fourth house becomes the chart of your dwelling. So the first thing you want to look for is, how is the score in my 4th and 7th house in the birth chart? Is it above 28? Is it below 28? Even 27, 26 is something which is workable. Most of the people do have that. And they have a long-lasting marriage because other planets are supporting. Because remember, I said about Ashtakavarga, do not jump to Ashtakavarga because then you're going to lose. You want to see, is there a good planet sitting? Is the 4th or 7th Lord in an excellent position? Is it in Kendra, Trikon? Is it in Upachya houses? Then you look at the score as like this final signature. But then, because I used the word 7th house, well, also look at the 7th from the Karka of marriage, Venus. What score is Venus giving 7th from itself? And this is, I'm talking Binashtakvarga, the individual points that are given by the planets. Look at 7th from Venus in the birth. Look at 7th from Venus from Navamsha. So, and then also look at the total Sarvashtakvarga, 7th from Venus in birth and Navamsha. So like if I'm doing someone's relationship reading, I am automatically, my eyes are going to everything, including the score. And for me, within, 10, 15 seconds, I know how this person's married life is going to play out. Of course, I'm not doing any marriage consultation. I only give relationship because, again, see, if I did marriage consultation, I would have to discuss these things, and I don't want to. Even if you ask me now, hey, tell me my stuff, I'm not going to tell you that. Go judge it yourself. It's not my job. I don't want any karmic backlog from your doing your horoscope and telling you anything negative. But look at that 7th from Venus. That tells you a whole lot. Same thing goes from the moon and the sun. Because according to Parashara, sun and moon lagna, the sun and moon chart become very important. How is it that the 7th from your ego will play out? What is it that your 7th from, will your mind connect with 7th, people 7th from the moon? Mind and soul. So what is it called? Mind, body, and soul. Those are the three things, right? The mind, body, and soul from the ascendant, from the moon, from the sun. How is my ego? Is my ego going to overpower this other person? Is my ego going to be balanced with this other person? So look at the score from the sun. How am I going to mentally relate to women or men in my life? Will I be able to relate to them mentally? Fine, I have everything that I want in a marriage, but that mental connection is not there. We're not always on the same page mentally. Well, look from seventh from the moon. And you can look for every planet seventh from itself. How will be our karmas together? Well, seventh from Saturn will tell you that. But mainly because Venus is love, Venus is companionship, unionship. Look at the score seventh from Venus in the birth chart and Navamsha. Vinashtakvarga and Sarvashtakvarga. So you have looked at the chart, you're like, okay, seventh lord is in the fourth house in a very good placement, sitting with a friend. Seventh lord is exalted in the fourth house, sitting with Venus. Okay, you're a Cancer ascendant. Well, it has great strength, right? And then you saw Navamsha. Navamsha is becoming quite average. Yeah, workable. Okay. So now you know that the union is going to happen. Marriage is going to take place. Now what you do, you also look at the score secondary, the Sarvashtakvarga score, like total score. 7th house in the birth chart, 7th house in Navamsha. Okay, one is receiving 26 points in the birth chart, 35 points in Navamsha. Okay, the signature of the universe says that you are going to perpetuate and go through all the obstacles together. If it's weak in the birth chart, you perhaps might get married late. So you look at that, then you're making that judgment quickly. Okay, it's gonna survive. Navamsha, seventh lord is average and good position, no malefic influence on it. If there's malefic influence on it, look at what is that malefic influence doing? Is it really destroying the marriage, or is it just making it more, bickering and arguing like every couple does? Then you look, okay, how is seventh from Venus? I don't care about the mental connection. Sometimes most couples don't have mental connection. Sometimes the husband ego will come about, or the wife ego will come about, and the other person has to, put their hands together, say, yes, you're my boss. Are you listening to me, Mrs. Raj? You're my boss. But you look seventh from Venus, and you're like, okay, seventh from Venus receiving 1 point. That will tell you that love and that bondage that will be received. Seventh from Venus receives 7 points, 8 points from the birth and Navamsha. You just know that marriage, no matter how bad you guys fight, that love will always overpower that relationship and marriage. So now, if I asked you, let's look at I want to know about tell me about your siblings through Ashtakavarga. I'm not going to tell you anything. You tell me. What kind of calculations will you run in your mind? Well, first of all, you will see how is Mars in your birth chart. Mars is a kark of siblings. How is the third house of younger siblings? How is the 11th house of elder siblings? So if let's say you don't have younger siblings, then you're looking at the 11th house. And you're looking at the score that 11th house is receiving. Okay? You're looking at Mars, how many points that Mars is getting in it wherever it's sitting. Does it have strength? Then what you do, you look at the individual Vinashtakvarga points given to the 11th house by the 11th lord. So let's say you're a Leo ascendant, 11th house is ruled by Gemini, which is Mercury. Well, go in your report. And by the way, I do have divisional Ashtakavarga in my report. I saw it, I think it was page 57 or something, but you do have in the Ashtakavarga section, you do have divisional scores in the Ashtakavarga chart. But you look at Mercury and Vinashtakvarga of Mercury. Okay, so Mercury is giving 3 points. Below average. Average is 4, right? Between 0 and 8. 4 is the average, 3 is below average. So we see that there's going to be some below average relationship given by Mercury. You see Mars, the Karka, that becomes the most important. Karka. How many points has Mars given to the 11th house? It's giving 8 points? Oh, wow. Okay. We're going to see that there may not be some communication, but there's always going to be that coming together and fighting for each other. Oh, Mars is sitting in the 3rd house in Libra, and Mars is getting 29 points. Strength. Okay. So I've determined this, that this person has a yoga of having a good relationship with a sibling. But now, because I said siblings, you go to your D3 chart. And when you go to D3 Drikana chart, now you read the Sarvashtakvarga of the 11th house and where Mars is sitting. Now you will see if their low score is really low, that will tell you that over time this relationship will go apart. If it's strong, it'll always remain strong. If there's like 0 points given in the Drikna chart by Mars, okay, this can show that there's like actually no relationship with the elder sibling, and there's no elder sibling at all. Because then without Drikna, we cannot determine if this person has siblings or not. Birth chart just gives you an overall picture. Birth chart will give you that 2.5 hour picture of everybody who's born there, okay? Because they're all coming with the same karmic energy. But then certain people will have things, certain people will not have certain things. For that, you go towards Drikna. Drikna, you look at Mars, you look at Jupiter, you look at 11th Lord. Because we already know you don't have younger siblings. But if you have younger siblings, then look at the 3rd house as well. So it's kind of like you have to, when you're looking at, when you are trying to be an astrologer, you've got to be like an administrator, like a secretary. What is the job of a secretary and administrator? It is like they do multitasking. They have to do multitask. They're calling, they're writing an email, and they're telling the other person, hey, get this for the boss. That's multitasking, right? So the brain has to multitask. It's looking here, 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 here. They're looking at the and then determining things. But Ashtakavarga, so if you have yoga of having siblings in the birth chart, yoga of sibling is in the Drikna, but the score is just very low. That will determine that the relationship is just non-existent. It's not good. Because having sibling or not having siblings is mainly the first job of the yoga. The combination, the strength of the planet and the sign. Divisional chart confirms that. How is Mars position? How is the 11th Lord position? Is it debilitated? Is it like in an enemy sign? There are a lot of malefics looking at the 3rd house. It'll show you. And remember what I did with the Sunili Jain Pavar ji, who came to my channel talking about Drikna. She shows you all of the, yes and no of that. So the Ashtakavarga divisional chart really gives you the in-depth of how that relationship will be. And especially remember when I told you about B.V. Raman's book, 3 means this, 4 means this, 6 means this, 7 means this. That will not really apply to the divisional charts because only Sarvashtakvarga is there, the total score. But if you read the total score that B.V. Raman talks about, that will also give you a great indication. Some score will tell you could be cheated by your siblings. So this is how we try to understand birth to division. But if you're also looking for siblings, remember I said Venus for marriage, you look 7th from Venus. Well, for Mars, what are you going to look for? You're going to look for 3 and 11th from Mars. How is 3 and 11th from Mars? How is 11th, how many points Mars is given 11th from itself? And or to the 11th house and the 3rd house. It is like you're literally taking 10, 15 different things and then calculating them in your head. So for some people, they become lost with Ashtakavarga. But the thing is, once you are multitasking, so it's not like every one of you guys will understand what I'm saying here because you guys are not really in sync to become an astrologer. You're just interested because most of you just want to know about yourself. But the thing is, when I'm looking at a chart about something, I'm doing this multitasking in my head. Now I'm opening up my screen of Sarvashtakvarga, Binashtakvarga. I'm looking at, okay, 2 points, 3 points here, 23 on this house, 42 on this house. How is that going to behave out? So this is multitasking you have to do. Me telling you about Ashtakavarga, these 3, 4 parts, it's making things easier, but it's not giving you that black and white answer. There's no black and white answer in astrology. It's all that analysis that goes in to give you that answer. But here's the thing. I'll share this chart of Mahatma Gandhi here. So he's actually a Libra ascendant. Okay. And his fifth house receives 31 points. Okay. And fifth Lord Saturn is a Yoga Karaka for his ascendant. That means one is very much promised to have children. And Saturn is in the second house in Scorpio, looking at the 11th house, which is also known as the house of sons. Why is the 11th house a house of children? Because it is fifth from the 7th house. Okay. And then you have beautiful moon sitting in the fifth house in the Navamsha. Now, one thing I forgot to add here, let me see if I can still add it. It's his Saptamsha. See, Saptamsha. So you guys can put the his birth chart in your own software. I think you should get it. Okay, so his Saptamsha, the fifth house has 22 points, way below average. Okay, the ninth house has below average point of 27. Although exalted Venus is there and moon is in its own sign, again giving strength to the fifth and ninth house. Also, the seventh lord in the Navamsha is in the fifth house. Seventh house is your second child. Ninth house is your third child. 11th house is your fourth child. But if you look at in the let me go back to the software here. So let's look at Mahatma Gandhi's Ashtakavarga. Okay, and I didn't even know. Okay, I didn't even know that Mahatma Gandhi had 4 sons. I actually looked at it after. I'm like, oh my God, his chart really is showing this and this. But then when I studied it, it's showing this and this. And I looked online that night and I'm like, oh, he had 4 sons. To this day, I didn't know. I thought he had no children, or maybe he had 1 child or something. But to be honest with you, that's how bad my history is. I actually didn't even know he had 4 sons. So if you look at Mahatma Gandhi's Vinashtakvarga, see, fifth Lord Saturn is only giving 2 points to the fifth house of children, overall relationship with the children. Seventh house, 2 points. Third house, 2 point. Fourth house, 5 point, a little above average. But where is Saturn sitting? Where Saturn is sitting is 0 points. So the strength of the fifth Lord is literally nil to nothing. And remember, this is why second house represents wealth, money, food, speech. So if you're looking at this Vinashtakvarga of Mahatma Gandhi, it clearly shows what is the overall relationship with the sons are. And so when I was reading on it, I'm like, wow, he did not have a good relationship with most of his sons, especially the youngest one. I forgot his name, but none of them received any benefit from their father. They had a completely different opinion of their father. The world is going, oh, Bapu and Mahatma. And for them, and even I was reading on Wikipedia when the spouse came to him about how empty he was with her and the children. Okay, so now look at the seventh from Venus. Seventh from Venus. Look at how many points seventh from Venus is giving. 1 point. 1 point. So when let's say, if I was doing relationship reading or marriage reading for Mahatma Gandhi before he was married and he came to me, I would be looking at this and I'll be like, man, this is going to be tough. But if I'm looking at the children, man, this is going to be quite tough. Sure, the Yoga Karaka is in the second house of wealth. It wants to give wealth. And guess what? It did give him wealth. In South Africa, when he was a lawyer, he was literally, I think, equivalent to nowadays, he was making, I think, $150,000 back then. But guess what? The money just went away. And he wanted to live the most simplest lifestyle. He didn't want to um, do anything lavish and, wanting to have a car and nice clothes and all that. Once he became once he became a freedom fighter, he's like, I don't care for wealth. I'll live in just like dhoti and kurta and that's it. I'm good. So for him, automatically, he didn't really care for it. Saturn was like putting a stamp on the second house. Because wherever Saturn sits, it's going to give like a lot of struggle, even if it's a yoga karaka. It's a natural malefic. But then Saturn receives 0 points. And then look at this. There's another thing. Because Saturn is in the second house for Mahatma Gandhi, Saturn aspects the fourth house where Ketu is. Okay? Saturn aspects the eighth house. Saturn aspects the 11th house with its special aspect. So what's happening here? Because Saturn has 0 points, Saturn has 0 points where he's sitting. Okay? 0 points. So Saturn's aspect will also be nil and negative. 8 is extremely good. 0 is extremely harsh. So all the aspect that Saturn is giving, it's going to really bring down the hardest time in his life. So when Mahatma Gandhi went back to his home, India, Gujarat, he wasn't living in some nice palace and all the things he had. He was living in a hut. He had farm animals outside of him. He had to fight. He was beaten. He was sent to jail in his homeland. 11th house of gains. Saturn, whatever gains he received, Saturn just took it away. And especially the 8th house of joint assets. No joint assets, especially back then, no wife was working back then. It was considered like sacrilegious if your spouse was working. So once you study aspect from this perspective of Ashtakavarga, you really see, okay, what's happening. So Venus receives 3 points where it sits below average. Venus is its own Mool Trikon sign, gets strength. Okay, so Venus says, I will give you a partner. Sure, I'll give you a partner. I'm in a very good strength, and especially in his Navamsha, which I can show you. His Navamsha, Venus is again in a strength position in the 7th house. Okay, in the sign of Taurus. Now, here's the thing. If I was to look at a Navamsha Nakshatra of Mahatma Gandhi, I can say a lot of things that I will not say here. I will not say it here because, again, it's not my place to say certain things about somebody who has passed away who can defend themselves. Okay? Only if somebody who's alive who can defend themselves and prove me wrong, I would then say it. But going back to this Venus' strength, 3 points is below average. 7th from Venus, the aspect of Venus, not even the 7th house, the aspect of Venus will be weak. Because 7th from Venus receives 1 point, but the aspect, the drishti that Venus is giving is below average drishti. It's like a desert when it comes to his marriage. So if a farmland is all about growing crops and having fruits and strawberries growing, his is like becomes a desert when it comes to marriage. But because Venus gained strength, I can't show the Navamsha because I have to like copy paste it, and I don't think I can do it here. But Venus, the way it receives the strength in the 7th house, it's able to withstand things. Because in 7th house in Navamsha of Mahatma Gandhi, he receives average points, 28 points in the 7th house. Okay? And 7th from Venus in the Navamsha receives 33 points. So there is a promise of marriage, promise of unionship. Okay? But in the birth chart, when you look, you see the main thing that is happening is how this marriage will be. But marriage will sustain itself. The spouse will give that devotion to him. Okay? Now, also you have to look at the times. If Mahatma Gandhi was now doing his thing in 2017 with this score, most likely, the spouse must have divorced him. Gotten married, but would have divorced him due to whatever their relationship was like. Like I said, I can say a whole lot, but it's just not, I'm not going to say, it's not my place to say something about somebody who has passed away, even if they're passed away. I can discuss it in one-on-one with somebody without a public platform because I'm a person of principles. I don't like to go into certain things and then, take advantage of somebody's life when they're not here to defend and all that. So this is how we study Ashtakavarga in terms of from A through Z that I've showed you so far. So one of the most important things is the aspect. If your planet receives 8 points wherever it's sitting, and especially if it's like a special planet like, Saturn, Jupiter, Mars, their special aspect is going to strengthen wherever they aspect in the horoscope. Now let's talk about Rahu Ketu as well. Okay, I have already told you guys about Rahu Ketu in the first part. Let's talk about it. Why Rahu Ketu should not be studied so strongly with the Ashtakavarga. Why? If you study the classics, Rahu Ketu are very surprising planets. It's like black hole. Rahu Ketu is eclipsed. So when something is eclipsed, you do not know what's behind it. Yes, we know there's a sun behind it or there's a moon behind it. But when the eclipse is there and you're born, you really don't know what's behind it. It could be some monster, some dragon behind that eclipse coming out. So Rahu Ketu are very surprising planet. Rahu could be exalted and it'll give you the most surprising negative result. Rahu could be debilitated and it'll give you sudden rise in life unexpectedly. So Rahu Ketu are very unexpected planets. As much as we can study them through their nakshatra, house placement, pai paddhati, trabhagi dasha, still they will give something surprising that nobody can really determine it. Half people will say it, half people will won't. And this is where it then becomes a guessing game with Rahu Ketu. Like, okay, so this astrologer said it's good, this astrologer said bad. Oh, it was actually good, so this guy's right. He must know something better. But guess what? Next time if he says something about Rahu, Rahu may not give that. So studying the Ashtakavarga of Rahu Ketu, it's good for Rahu to be under a higher Sarvashtakvarga point. Rahu, if it has 42 points in that house, yes, that is great. But remember I said, look at the Lord. So Rahu is in the 11th house in Leo, right? And Leo receives 32 points. Great. But Sun gives 2 points to the 11th house. Well, that should not really make me determine if Rahu is going to give great or bad results. Because again, this theory, even after testing, has given surprising results. So this is why Rahu Ketu are not included in that by Parashara himself, because these are eclipses. These are like wormholes. They're going to bring their own score. They have their own hidden score in the back, and they give it out when they're active. Oh, I'm in the 0 points? Okay, here you go. 8 points. There. Did I throw you off balance? Okay, that's what I'm supposed to do. That is the Rahu Ketu story. Okay, so this is why Rahu Ketu Dasha transits are very surprising. Besides whatever we can study, nobody can accurately 100% say this is what is going to happen. Even if that thing happens, something additional will happen that you did not see. So this is the way we study. Now, who wants me to look at their Ashtakavarga? And remember, if you come on later on, say, oh, can you please not do that? I will not do that. I cannot like just delete this video because you want me to do that. I'm telling you right now. You're going to want me to study it. You better be careful. Because I want to give my honest study here. If I can't do live reading, I mean, how do you know? Like, what the hell do I know about Ashtakavarga? So let's look at some chart. Let's look at Prashali. Let's look at Prashali's chart. I'm not gonna say your last name because there's no need to, but I'm just gonna say, so let's put in your birth detail. So I'm not even gonna tell your birth date. And you're born at what? 7:25. Okay. And you're born in Ulgar. Okay, so are you a male or female? Prashali, are you a male or female? Because whatever I look at is going to determine that. Can you please answer? Okay, you're a male. Okay. So, your Venus in its Sarvashtakvarga or Binashtakvarga, the individual points. Venus, where it sits, gives 6 points. Beautiful. Above average. Average is 4, right? But look at the 7th aspect from Venus. It's giving 5 points, 7th from itself, which is again above average. So Venus gives great strength to have a strong relationship and bondage, where when you fight with your spouse, you will still be able to have that bondage and love, and you'll be able to, every time, you'll be able to recover from things because Venus is very strongly strengthened. Through Sarvashtakvarga, Venus receives 35 points in the 11th house. Excellent Venus. 7th from Venus in the Navamsha receives 23 points. Where Venus sits in Navamsha with Saturn receives 32 points. So now, and then Venus is not only in the sign of Scorpio, is in Nakshatra of Jyeshtha. Now the thing is, are you sure you want me to say something? Do you want me to go on? Because again, I'm gonna warn you. Do you want me to go on with your reading of Ashtakavarga? My Venus is in. Yes, I know your Venus is in Aries, but you want me to give further analysis? Go on. Okay. So Venus is with Saturn in the Navamsha. So what Venus does with Saturn is that when you're in that marriage, when you're in that bondage of marriage, you are going to have very restricted boundaries. Okay? Number one, there's going to be a very strong commitment needed in the marriage. This can be to a point where, let's say, if you look at somebody, like everybody has a wandering eye when they go to a party and they're beautiful women and men. You having that, even that eye, may get you into trouble with your spouse. Spouse is going to keep you in the boundary of her own bondage. But what does show in your Navamsha with Saturn is that you will accumulate unaccounted wealth with spouse, hidden wealth, offshore accounts, cash money coming in and storing that. Spouse is going to be older in age with you. Most definitely, she'll be either of the same age or a little bit older in age with you. And because of the fact Venus is with Saturn in the nakshatra of Jyeshtha, number one, your spouse is going to be the eldest sibling in the family, or she'll take the responsibility of the eldest sibling due to some financial debt in the family. Meaning, it could be a scenario where family has accumulated a lot of debt. Father had to give his house on this, or give jewelry, or borrow money for somebody's wedding, and now he cannot pay back. And so your spouse will be like, okay, dad, I'm gonna go find a job, and I know my other sisters are, they're studying and all that, and I know I'm the middle child, but I'll go get a work. I know I can. I'll help you pay your debt off. And so then she will take on the responsibility because of some debt that may have happened in the family. And spouse is going to be extremely intelligent, far more intelligent than you. She will always be 2 or 3 steps ahead of you in marriage. But because seventh from Venus, the accumulated Sarvashtakvarga is 23. You will not rule your marriage. She will. You will not make her dance on your command. You will dance on her command. Otherwise, the marriage bondage within the marriage life is going to be like a desert. You're going to feel anytime you go say, no, we're going to do this. We're going to go here today. We're going to go here for vacation. She's going to be this Jeshta that will come alive, and you'll be like, okay. So your married life, according to just by the standard that I'm looking at, there's a lot more that I can say, but I still will not, because I still respect what I do as my profession. I still will not break certain rules, but you are going to have to bow to this person and listen to this person. One thing I also see is that the spouse that you will meet around the age of 14 must have had a near-death experience. And especially it may have been due to almost drowning. So if you meet a girl and says, you know what, I almost drowned when I was like 2 or 3, and my grandmother came and saved me, perhaps that's an indication you will marry that spouse or marry that woman. The other thing that I see is that her paternal uncle, like father's brother, may have unexpectedly passed away. Like out of nowhere, just he's healthy, he's all that, and he may have passed away. So that's another indication that, okay, this person can be your spouse. And especially the age of 23, 28, and 29. Oh, no. 23, 28, and actually, no, let me see here. Look at your here's my Varga charts. Okay, so your Jupiter is in the 7th in Astiyamsha. So 23, 28, you will have some sort of a relationship or a romantic encounter. But only at 34, I see a long-term relationship coming where you can actually develop that into a marriage. So that's yours. So who else wants me to read their Navamsha? I mean their Ashtakavarga. So let's look at the horoscope of Kashyapi. Kashyapi P. So let's. Okay, you're a female. All right, so you are born on, okay, at 12:52 Mumbai, California. California, what the hell am I saying? My crazy mind, an eccentric mind. All right, so you are 33 years old. 27 and 30, 24, 27, and 30 shows there would be some sort of a relationship or a romantic encounter in your life. But if you're looking at the Ashtakavarga, now the thing is your Navamsha, okay, I'm gonna tell you right now, your Navamsha is changing in 45 seconds. So I'm hoping that this is your correct time of birth. But first of all, your Venus shows me this, that your spouse is going to be a prolific writer. When you meet your spouse, like when you're walking with him, let's say he's like your boyfriend and you're walking with him or something in your daily routine, he will injure his knee, especially his right knee. Maybe he has like a sprained knee or torn meniscus or something. He will be the type of person who's going to love collecting gold. But Venus gets 23 Sarvashtakvarga points. Okay, and seventh from Venus is exactly the same, 23 points. But if we look at Venus's Binashtakvarg, that is also below average. Venus is giving 3 points where it sits and 3 points seventh from itself. So it shows me that there would be a delay. There would be a delay in terms of you getting married, but also the marriage is going to be all about professional. It's going to be like a very professional relationship and is going to be all about status. The meaning of that relationship, that's divine knowledge of, or that devotion of Venus. Venus is really devotion, that I'm devoted to you. That devotion is going to be very superficial towards how much can we accumulate, how much can we show off to people. We have this much land, we are driving a Lexus or Mercedes Benz, we have this, but internally, that Venus is, in the outside world, that Venus is going to feel empty. But when it comes to the marriage itself, the married life itself, your Venus is very strong, receives very high points in the fourth house and 36 points. Seventh from itself, 34 points. So shows that dealing with the materialistic aspect of your marriage, you're still going to find that love. You're still going to find that devotion with the spouse. But spouse is going to be, most definitely your spouse may have a habit of crossing his legs a lot. And spouse is very much going to be in fire rituals and doing yagnas and havans or even barbecue. And he will always want to be either coming across political figures or wanting to be something like a CEO or CFO of a company and wanting to pretend like he's a big shot person. And he could also have, especially with the way your Venus is receiving the aspect of Saturn, he could have like this split personality, like just two people living in one person. So, Kashapi, what is your history with relationship and marriage? Are you there? Well, I guess she's not there. Okay, okay, single. So, because of that Venus receiving and giving 3 points in the where it sits and seventh from itself, it is going to be delayed. And then you have Saturn in the seventh house. So again, it shows that delay. But did around the ages that I mentioned, did anything happen in terms of romantic encounters or relationships occurring? And if you're still single at 33, 30, 35th year, especially the month of December, April, and July would be the time period where you could meet someone. Uh, but I'm sorry I didn't get your last question that I asked you. Okay, so let's look at Deepti. So let's look at Deepti's Ashtakavarga. Okay, so you're born 10 p.m. And there. One thing you will notice about your spouse is that he's going to have some sort of an OCD, like an obsessive compulsive disorder. He's going to be very good with business and contracts. Dealing in contracts, most definitely, he's either going to be an accountant or he's going to be in like investments, like either accounting or like financial investments, especially like management. Um, 8. So your Venus receives 24 points where it sits, okay? And it's in the sign of Virgo below 1 degree. So this clearly shows that you're going to have patience when it comes to relationship and marriage. Like looking at your chart, knowing that you're 24, 28th year, 31st and 34th year will be the periods where you will meet someone. And you could have had some romantic encounter around 22nd year. But it's highly unlikely because Venus has to gain strength. But especially from Binashtakvarg, Venus has great points where it sits. Okay, so shows that you will attain fixed assets in your life, like vehicles and real estate. But Venus, 7th from Venus, gets 3 points. That means your ability to give and receive that devotional love, it's not going to happen in the first half of life. And if it does, it's going to be very dry, like a desert. Okay? And there's a couple of things I would love to say it, but I will not say it in public. But looking at your Venus in Navamsha, receives 29 points, okay, where it says, which is above average to 20, and it's in Parivartan Yoga with Saturn, creating a Raj Yoga. Beautiful. And 7th from Venus receives 27 points, which is 1 point below average. So again, it's going to be a sustainable marriage. But it is going to be a marriage that will give you all the fixed assets. The status is one thing you will notice is that once you do get married, once the marriage happens, you will attain immediately within like 2 years, you will attain vehicles, you will attain like land, real estate, and also your spouse's fame will rise. Suddenly your spouse is getting recognized in his organization. Your spouse may be getting some sort of like a online fame or something. And it's funny, your spouse as well will be quite a prolific writer. But he will be very much into government, wanting to always having desire to be like a civil servant person or wanting to go into high government or political position. One thing you will also notice about the spouse, he will always wake up between 4 and 4:30 a.m. in the morning. No matter what happens, either his eyes wake up and he goes back to sleep, or he just gets up and goes to the restroom and all that. But every single day it'll happen like that. But the thing is, the way your Venus is below 1 degree, receiving low Ashtakavarga points, the later you meet someone, actually, the better it is for you. You will meet someone early, okay, but you will see that just like a desert. You're like, man, I mean, what am I doing in this relationship? But if it doesn't last, don't think like you will never find that right person. You will. The Navamsha promises that, but it just says it's gonna happen late. So I guess I have spent almost an hour here. Look, guys, I would love to do all of your readings, but I've got a couple of things going on here. So, um, but hey, if you want to know again about your divisional Ashtakavarga, it's in my report on page 57 and all. If you need that, readings, consultations, it's on the website astrologycares.com. Otherwise, I have to leave because I have a phone call it's 11:30 within like 15 minutes, so I've got to make a phone call, guys. But again, if you're new to my channel, subscribe below. Okay. But please note, I mean, for the people that I've done this reading for, if I was to like really do the reading, I would tell you a whole lot. But again, it's not something that I would discuss. But again, all the charts that I've seen, you will be able to sustain the marriage. But again, it's like, hey, it is what it is. Yeah. So we'll see you guys probably tonight with my regular series videos.